Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Shiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tatujayam Udiraye Nashta Prayeshu Abhareshu Nityam Bhagavati Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamasloke Bhakti Bhavati Nastiki. Today we are reading from Canto 5, Chapter 13, further talks between King Rahu Gana and Jada Bharat. Text 1. Jada Bharat, who had fully realized Brahman, continued, My dear King Rahugana, the living entity wanders on the path of the material world, which is very difficult for him to traverse, and he accepts repeated birth and death. Being captivated by the material world under the influence of the three modes of material nature, Sattva-guna, Rajaguna, and Tamaguna, the living entity can see only the three fruits of activity under the spell of material nature. These fruits are auspicious, inauspicious, and mixed. He thus becomes attached to religion, economic development, sense gratification, and monistic theory of liberation, merging with the supreme. He works very hard day and night, exactly like a merchant who enters the forest to acquire some articles to sell later for profit. However, he cannot really achieve happiness within this material world. Text 2. O King Rahugana, in this forest of material existence, there are 6 very powerful plunderers. When the conditioned soul enters the forest to acquire some material gain, the 6 plunderers misguide him. Thus, the conditioned merchant does not know how to spend his money, and it is taken away by these plunderers. Like tigers, jackals, and other ferocious animals in a forest that are ready to take away a lamb from the custody of its protector, the wife and children enter the heart of the merchant and plunder him in so many ways. Text 3. In this forest, there are dense bowers composed of thickets of bushes, grass, and creepers. In these bowers, the conditioned soul is always disturbed by the cruelly biting mosquitoes, envious people. Sometimes he sees an imaginary palace in the forest, and sometimes he is bewildered by seeing a fleeting fiend or ghost, which appears like a meteor in the sky. Text 4. My dear King, the merchant on the forest part of the material world, his intelligence victimized by home, wealth, relatives, and so forth, runs from one place to another in search of success. Sometimes his eyes are covered by the dust of a whirlwind. That is to say, in his lust, he is captivated by the beauty of his wife, especially during her menstrual period. Thus, his eyes are blinded and he cannot see where to go or what he's doing. Text 5. Wandering in the forest of the material world, the conditioned soul sometimes hears an invisible cricket making harsh sounds, and his ears become very much aggrieved. Sometimes his heart is pained by the sounds of owls, which are just like harsh words of his enemies. Sometimes he takes shelter of a tree that has no fruits or flowers. He approaches such a tree due to his strong appetite, and thus he suffers. He would like to acquire water, but he is simply illusioned by the mirage, and he runs after it. Text 6. Sometimes the conditioned soul jumps into a shallow river, or being short of food grains, he goes to beg food from people who are not at all charitable. Sometimes he suffers from the burning heat of household life, which is like a forest fire, and sometimes he becomes sad to have his wealth, which is as dear as life, plundered by kings in the name of heavy income taxes. Text 7. Sometimes, being defeated or plundered by a superior powerful agent, a living entity loses all his possessions. He then becomes very morose, and lamenting their loss, he sometimes becomes unconscious. Sometimes he imagines a great palatial city in which he desires to live happily with his family members and riches. He thinks himself fully satisfied if this is possible, but such so-called happiness continues only for a moment. Text 8. Sometimes the merchant in the forest wants to climb the trees and mountains, but due to insufficient footwear, his feet are pricked by small stone fragments and by thorns on the mountain. Being pricked by them, he becomes very aggrieved. Sometimes a person who is very attached to his family becomes overwhelmed with hunger, and due to his miserable condition, he becomes furious with his family members. Text 9. The conditioned soul in the material forest is sometimes swallowed by a python or crushed. At such a time, he is left lying in the forest like a dead person, devoid of consciousness and knowledge. Sometimes other poisonous snakes bite him. Being blind to his consciousness, he falls down into a dark well of hellish life with no hope of being rescued. Text 10. Sometimes, in order to have a little insignificant sex enjoyment, one searches after debauched women. In this attempt, one is insulted and chastised by the woman's kinsmen. This is like going to take honey from a beehive and being attacked by the bees. Sometimes, after spending lots of money, one may acquire another woman for some extra sense enjoyment. Unfortunately, the object of sense enjoyment, the woman, is taken away or kidnapped by another debauchee. Text 11. Sometimes the living entity is busy counteracting the natural disturbances of freezing cold, scorching heat, strong wind, excessive rainfall, and so forth. When he is unable to do so, he becomes very unhappy. Sometimes he is cheated in business transactions one after another, and in this way, by cheating, living entities create enmity among themselves. Text 12. On the first part of material existence, sometimes a person is without wealth, and due to this, does not have a proper home, bed, or sitting place, no proper family enjoyment. He therefore goes to beg money from others, but when his desires are not fulfilled by begging, he wants to borrow or steal the property of others. Thus, he is insulted in society. Text 13. Due to monetary transactions, relationships become very strained and end in enmity. Sometimes the husband and wife walk on the path of material progress, and to maintain their relationship, they work very hard. Sometimes, due to scarcity of money or due to diseased conditions, they are embarrassed and almost die. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Vidya Mataji. Himanshu Prabhuji, whenever you are ready, please take over, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Thanks for joining this call. Today is a very auspicious day for our Acharya's appearance date, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and then also a disappearance day of our Namacharya. So we need to, chant too much to, make our Acharyas happy, Namacharya happy. And thanks for Vidya Mataji for reading today's translation. Let me offer my prayers. Om Akyantimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharni Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashat Deshatarani Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Mataji, I'll share my screen. I hope you gave me the...
Yeah, sure, Prabhuji. I made you co-host. You can share your screen.
Is it... my screen is visible, Mataji? Is it visible?
Yeah, now we are able to see, Prabhuji.
Yes. Okay. Okay, so today we are going to discuss the further talk between King Rahugana and Jal Bharata. If we compare these talks of how Jadabharata is trying to explain King Rahugana so that he can disassociate with the material world.
Sorry, Prabhuji, we could not able to see the verses. If you want to share those things,
Okay. Is it visible, Mataji, or not?
we can see just the Zoom thing, but not the verses.
Okay, Mataji. I don't know. Just give me a minute, Mataji.
I think different tab is shared, Prabhuji.
Oh,
Yeah.
Mataji, just give me a minute. I'm sorry. I'm not sure what I'm sharing. Just give
Yeah,
me.
now we can able to see
Now, what you're seeing, Mataji?
the verses, the
You're
what you
seeing the
want to
Veda
share, we
base?
can able to see. Yeah,
Veda base?
yeah, Veda base.
Okay. So, I'm sorry, Mataji, for inconvenience. Okay. So, uh, Jada Bharata instructions are in line with his father's instruction in his previous life, Rishabh instructions. So, if we compare few instructions, Rishabh instructed Bharat Maharaj, always associate and serve the great soul. And talk, and he also explain and talk about the glories of the great soul. Similarly, Jada Bharat, when he was instructing King Rahugana, he also instructed Rahugana to associate and serve the great souls. And also, he discussed the quality to describe what are the qualities of the great souls. And if we compare, Rishabh Dev also said, avoid thinking that this life is meant for spiritual, material enjoyment. Like you don't live the life like an animal life. And similarly, in this chapter, Jalabharta warned King and described that don't think that this material world is a forest of material enjoyment. It's not. And then Rishabdev also explained, always seek spiritual bliss, unending spiritual bliss, because that is eternal. And then similarly, in this last chapter, Rahugana, King Jalabharata, said to King Rahugana, always seek the Vasudeva, who is the fountainhead of all existence, and then he will give the unending pleasure. So in the first text, when we look, so it's talk about uh, uh, now Jadabharata is trying to explain King Rahugana with the help of the allegorical story where merchant entering the forest. He is not telling in the direct word the condition of the conditioned souls in this material world, how struggle conditioned soul has to go through. But he's trying to tell in a simplified way, like merchant entering the forest and then what kind of struggle merchant has to go through. And in the next chapter, he is trying to relate the situation of merchant with the conditioned souls, and the forest is nothing but a material forest, material life. But our acharyas are so merciful that they have explained everything in this chapter as part of the purport so that we can understand, we should not get confused. Now let's go to the text one. So in text one, Jal Bharta is explaining the king that the reality of living entity in this material world. Because this living being under the illusion of Maya and they are acting under the modes of material nature, they are trying to wander from one place to another place from different births. And they are taking and they are, entrapped in this clutches of Maya. And then they are taking different births without knowing what is the actual prayojan of this human birth. And they live as a false identification. They live in the bodily identification because they recognize themselves as part of body. They remain always miserable. And but they think, if you ask anyone in the roadside, how are you, Prabhuji? They will always say, yeah. Or how are you? I mean, any materialistic person, how are you? They will always say that I'm happy because they think they are happy, but still they are lot of material miseries and disease are going in their life, but still they think like they are happy. And then there are three different results of all the material occupations. Like one can get an auspicious result, inauspicious result, and the mixed result based on their karma. And then the result of their karma, their next birth will be decided. And they need to transmigrate from between the 8.4 million species because one designate himself and then later on because they are under the influence of Maya in the false designation they think themselves they are developing the economy, they are developing the social life, and they are also enjoying the sense gratification. They call themselves by the title like, oh, I'm Indian, I'm American, I'm nationalist. So these are the title comes because of the bodily identification, because of their lack of real knowledge. And that is the reason this conditioned soul wastes all the time by satisfying the senses and lording over to the material nature. And then they forget the real purpose of the life. And because the soul nature is the forgetfulness. As we take a birth, we forget everything, what happened in the past. But in the womb of our mother, we remember all our past life. So real nature of the soul is the Satchitan Anand. So to get the bliss, and that is what, but they don't know the reality. They are forgetful in nature under the ignorance. So that's why they are always trying to acquire the happiness and bliss in this material world with the dead matter, because they're trying to associate with the dead matter. So all these happiness is very temporary and futile in nature. And whenever a happiness comes, sometimes when temporary happiness come, it also comes with the byproduct of distress and miseries. And when the distress and misery come, then the conditions will think, okay, now I'm not getting, suppose one person buy a car, he might be happy for a month or so, and then that happiness become futile, and then he is not anymore happy. Then what he try to do, he wander around and he roam around for some other happiness to get something else so that he can enjoy his senses. So when Jalabhata is explaining, when merchant enter the forest, why is entering the forest? Because he wants to collect some goods and some articles so that he can sell in the future for the profit. But he never achieve any, because his intent to get the profit so that he can happy himself. But that happiness is not eternal profit. It's all temporary futile happiness, which will comes with a byproduct of misery. Text 2, we'll go to text 2, talk about now is Jalabharta is explaining how there are 6 plunders, powerful plunders, which are waiting for the merchant. And then those plunders misguide the merchant. So these, in the next chapter, how Jalabharta compare these 6 powerful plunders with the 5 senses and 1 mind. Because when the senses are uncontrolled, then what mind become slave of the senses. And mind will agree with all the senses demand, uncontrolled senses demand. And I think we heard yesterday about the mind from Anand Gaurang Prabhuji. And then Jadavada talk about how the jackals and different ferocious animals like wolves, lion are waiting, and then they want to, suck the blood of the merchant. They want to eat the flesh of the merchant. So then these Prabhupada explained how jackals are compared to the crying children and wife of a person. Correct? In the night, how jackals start crying very loudly, similar to one's children. Children may cry and say, hey dad, hey dear father, I'm your children, I'm your son, I want this thing to satisfy my senses, I want that thing to satisfy my senses. Similarly, wife can also say, my dear husband, I want this and that. And in that way, and these jackals cry loudly, and then they trying to plunder your riches. And then mind and senses are so strong that conditioned soul always try to satisfy their demand. And when you talk about the forest of material world, because merchant is not knowing the actual prayojan of the life, he plundered by these thieves, and they suck their blood. So in this Kali Yuga, in the material world, one has to earn, as per the Krishna conscious movement, what Prabhupada said, one has to earn. It's not like earning the money is wrong for devotee. It's not. But when person is earning the money, he should use his money in advancing the Krishna conscious activity by donating to the temple, by book distribution, by supporting different activities of the temple, so that by serving the prasadam, so that one should not waste his money on the different activities like club, liquor, gambling, and other material bodily enjoyment. But unfortunate reality is, nowadays 99% people are spending their hard-earned money for their bodily engagement because they don't know the real purpose of the life, and they are trying to enjoy the temporary happiness with a lot of miseries. And due to these bad activities, the result of karma, due to that, they fall down further, and then they were always entrapped in the cycle of birth and death. We can relate with one of our story where how dacoit Ratnakar, who was robbing the people, correct, from in the forest, because villagers were going from one village to another village by the forest, and then this dacoit Ratnakar was sitting on the forest and trying to kill these villagers to rob them, and so that he can enjoy his livelihood with his family, with his son and with wife. But when Narada Muni came, he enlightened him, like, whatever fruits of your act, your family will definitely enjoy. But the result you need to alone suffer. They will not suffer. And then when he confirmed with his family, they said, "Yeah, father, it's your responsibility to take care of us. And whatever way you are following, that's your choice. And we are not gonna be, um, you know, take the credit of your bad deeds. So that's your responsibility. It's your duty." So then when Ratnakar come back, he surrendered to the Narada Muni, and Narada Muni enlightened him further, and he become the Valmiki. So in text 3 talk about, like, now when the merchant went into the dense forest, correct? Dense forest, shady places are compared to the Grihastha ashram. As in the Grihastha ashram, person want to enjoy the family life, and then but because of the family enjoyment of material things, because he is materialistic, he doesn't know the real purpose. What is the purpose of this Grihastha ashram? He doesn't know. So when person is trying to because his desires are not burned, unless a family person is not able to burn his all materialistic desire with the power of devotional service, he will keep on taking birth again and again in this material world. It's just like a weed will keep on growing with the crop, unless we'll uproot the weed, it will keep growing. And then it's talk about how now further when merchant goes inside the deep forest, he find like mosquitoes are biting him. So mosquitoes here are compared with the low class people, like undesirable people. Now for livelihood, for livelihood, we need to, work with many people in our profession. And then they are different kind of people, and then they are envious to each other. And this behavior, because of their envious nature and behavior, they are gonna bite the merchant or bite the conditioned soul very badly, and then conditioned soul will feel aggrieved or distressed. So that's why they are compared, these undesirable people, like kind of Shudra category, they are compared with the mosquito, because they will bite that person again and again. So in all this disturbance, like he's not in the shady place and beaten by the mosquitoes, now that merchant, he's in the imagination world, that he's thinking in the mid of the forest, he will construct a grand house, and then he will live there permanently, because his mind is not under his control, and his intelligence become handicapped. His mind is slave of senses. Even though he is getting a lot of miseries, he's not thinking that it's misery. He's thinking he's counteracting. Even though the temporary enjoyment is finished for one sense object, he will get another sense object and enjoy further. That's what his thought process is. And he's thinking like he will get a grand house. But how can it be a permanent? When this body is temporary, then all object related to this body is also temporary. So then we can see how conditioned soul remain inflicted by the false mind vision. And due to the overly attached toward the sense object, he chases after his, false imagination, like how deer chase the mirage in the desert. It's the same thing. And then in this text, it's mentioned like ghosts and witches. So materialistic people always incline towards the gold and money. So gold is compared to the ghost, and money is compared to the witches. So now text 4, merchant, now intelligence is already victimized by the house, wealth, and relative. And then he runs from one place to another place in the search of the success, but he never gets the success. So explanation is given in the next chapter, how Jadabharda explaining how conditioned soul is wandering around on the bodily platform under the illusion of Maya, being absorbed in the finding home, riches, opulences, success, so that he can maintain his body. In this course, he forgets the real prayojan of the life. and he wandered around this material world and he become entrapped there because he could not get the sangha of the sadhu shastra and sadhu and shastra and guru. So sometime and then sometime when merchant goes forward, there is a whirlwind, and then when wind will come, his eyes are poured with the dust, and then he is blinded. At that time he become blinded and he can't see where to go, what is right for me, what is not right for me. He's not able to distinguish between the what is correct, what is not correct. And then explanation is given in the next chapter how conditioned soul become blind due to the lusty desire. When one sees the beauty of opposite sex, he disobeys the role of the governing, because there is a, for each organs there is a demigod involved, correct? So there is a governance for the sex life also by the demigod. So because of this, so that is in the material life will think only the sex life will give the highest pleasure, and due to that there people has a lusty desire, and then because of that, to get the sense pleasure for the opposite sex, the person even do not care about the governance of the sex life, and then their lusty desire overpower that he ignore the future consequences of that. He doesn't care about the demigod what will happen, but he just want to look at the temporary pleasure. He was looking after the temporary pleasure. So Prabhupada explained in this purport how the materialistic person making his wife a center of attraction and work very hard day and night, and he only enjoyment is for sensual enjoyment during the sex intercourse. And then karmis are attracts to the woman either as a friend, sometimes they are indulged to the illicit sex even though they are not their wife, but even though they are entrapped in the illicit sex because their desire to satisfy the sense demand is uncontrollable, and then mind and intelligence could not contribute anything to protect him. But and then he indulged there in that, and then he doesn't know what is going to happen for the consequences of this. So in the text 5, it's talk about how now merchant is thirsty, is hungry to acquire water. What he does, merchant run after a mirage, and sometimes his heart pain due to the fear of hearing the sound of owls and crickets. So now these sounds of crickets and owls are compared to the people who are backbiting in our back. Correct? So material world is full of envious people. Within our inner circle, we may hear like people are talking bad about us, and they are backbiting to us. But we could not recognize their faces, but we hear their sound. And that's where the person, conditioned soul, become aggrieved. Similarly, these crickets, we hear the sound of them, and it's very disturbing to our ear. But still, we cannot see their presence where they are sitting. So these, and then Prabhupada has mentioned in the purport, like in the Krishna consciousness movement, when the people were joining, even their relatives, their parents were talking very unpalatable word to them. Like, why you are joining the Krishna conscious movement? This is not right. This is not your age. Because they don't want to do something and they are envious how one is progressing in the spiritual life. That's why they are trying to, because they're envious. That's why they started talking unpalatable word. That's the nature of in this material world. People are envious to each other. And then that causes the more distress in the person's life. As you know, threefold misery: adhyatmika, adi bhautik, and adi daivik. So this conditioned soul is always struggle with this threefold misery. And even they realize that these are the futile happiness, sense enjoyment. But because of the illusion and three modes of material nature, they forget that this all this bodily happiness is temporary. They run after it again and again for new happiness. And then it's just like Prabhupada is comparing that running after a mirage in the desert for a water, but he would not find the water. And then there is a Jadabhadra saying, like, now finally, merchant is taking the shelter of a tree where there are no fruit and no flower. So in the third canto, I think, when we are talking about the sarga, so there are the trees comes from the mode of ignorance, and that all six kind of trees, and then the trees which have no fruits and flower are the very inauspicious trees. And when these inauspicious trees are compared with the people who are wealthy, but they are but they're wealthy but no desire to give away anything. So they are compared to the dead people with a no realization. Even they can't help in the present life and not even in the future life. So the whole section describes how this conditioned soul is suffering because of the lack of knowledge of Supreme, because they don't have any association. That's why they are indulged in this material activity. Now, text 6 talk about sometimes conditioned souls, merchant jump for the desire of the water. He jumped into the shallow river. And then when he jumped into the shallow river, he broke his bones. So to mitigate this distress, conditioned soul, now what to do? Now he was first of all thirsty, then he jumped into the water, the river, or he might be feeling scorching heat. He want to, feel cold, and then definitely he jump into the water so that he can relax. But that water was a shallow water, and he broke his bone. And now how to mitigate his distress? Then he take an approach, an atheistic or pseudo guru. And he received the cheap advices, cheap blessings. And due to their influence of the cheap advices of the pseudo guru, he lost all his intelligence, completely lost his all intelligence. So Prabhupada mentioned one should always approach the bona fide guru for spiritual advancement, not for material gain. And it's also talk about this verse like then merchant become very sad. Then his wealth, because his wealth will be plundered by the yaksha, and then yakshas are compared by the government officials who take away our hard-earned money in form of the heavy taxes. And then even though we will try to protect our money, but government officials are so diligent enough that they find and then they we need to pay the taxes and penalty. We can't escape from it. Then text 7, after losing, now merchant has lose all his possessions. Now merchant become morose, and then he start lamenting for their losses. And then he become unconscious. In that state, still he's thinking that there is a big castle which is floating in the air. And then he is living with his family member in that castle and is enjoying last few moments. Sometime we might have seen that we are in the dream world. We might observe that we are living with our grandparents who are not living anymore, but still they are in our dream, living with us. We are enjoying the life. They came back and we are enjoying the life with them. And then we are in the dream world. But that dream is just like a temporary dream. As we woke up, all happiness will go away. Similarly, because that dream will be shortened. Like we might have seen, like kids are playing the family game, and then they play for few hours, correct? And then over there, someone is portraying the role of mother, someone is portraying the role of father, someone is portraying the role of kid, and then they enjoy that game. So it's just like a same thing. We need to realize that we are living a dream world where we are portraying one character. But this is not the end of the life. This is not the reality of the life. We are just living in the imaginary world and portraying our character without knowing our real purpose of the life. So in this material world, this conditioned soul is working very hard, doing a lot of endeavor to earn the castle, to earn for a skyscraper. They waste all their energy, and they think that they will find the permanent happiness, but they don't know the Kala Chakra, the stringent law of nature, that this happiness, it will devour everything. So then happiness may not last forever. And then everyone has to leave everything as they leave their body. Correct? So Prabhupada explained, I'll read it out. Prabhupada explained in this that world is busy trying to, every living entity is busy trying to attain happiness in this material world. And while one may be happy for a while, but for some powerful enemy plunder will wait for it, and then it will devour everything. And then one powerful enemy we know, it's a time, and the time with the three modes, it will foolish living entity will be attracted by with all this temporary happiness of all false business, and then it forget its real constitutional position. What is the real position? Our real constitutional position is to serve the senses of Krishna, serve the lotus feet of Krishna. And that is because our real constitutional position is the as a servant. But we think from our false ego, we think we are a Bhoktaram. We are a false Bhoktaram because the false ego tell, okay, we are the enjoyer of this material world. Let's lord it over this material world. But that's not correct. In text 8, now merchant want to climb the mountain. And now while climbing the mountain, he become agreed because lot of thorns, hit his leg. And then while climbing into the high mountain, our Acharya Bhakti, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur compared that hiking into the mountain is just like a one's family life. How one is trying to satisfy the family member with their demand, hunger, but there are new demands again come, and then he need to hike another height of the mountain. But these demands keep coming, and eventually what happened, 99% of time, all the population of the family member are unhappy with the household, head of the household. Even though he's making all his effort forward to satisfy the family member, but in this age of Kali, that is why now family life is being reduced. Initially, we have a joint family. Now we have a nuclear family. Now we have an atomic family. Nobody wants to live in the family life anymore. They want to just enjoy their senses, and then they don't want to take any kind of responsibility. That's why the children are out of the protection of their parents now. And what happened when the mind is disturbed? Now we are living in atomic family, living alone. Then what happened? Sometime we are in the hunger, we are hungry and angry when our desires are not satisfied. The krodh come. When kamas are not fulfilled, then krodh come, and then that krodh, how will do? Then when one's mind is disturbed, then he will become angry on his poor children and wife. And we might have observed that situation in our life, every one of us, that when we are frustrated, our desires are unfulfilled, the anger will come, and then we will, take the anger out to our family members, our wife, our children. And that is why Prabhupada mentioned one should depend on the Krishna to make his life successful. We should not depend on the material objects, material objectives. Success is only decided based on the surrender of the devotee to the Krishna service. So in the text 9, I think I'm a little over time. I'll try to cover quickly. Text 9 talk about how the real condition of the materialist living being, that now merchant is in so much distress. Now he's being swallowed by the python, and when he's swallowed by the python, he's become unconscious. And then when he become unconscious, lot of poisonous snakes are bitten him, and then there is no hope to rescue at that condition. So this condition is being compared that living being is right now in the deep sleep state, on the lap of the Maya, because they are not aware of the reality. They are always in the deep sleep, because they are engaged in the materialistic activity, bodily activity. They don't know the real purpose of life. So Bhakti Vinod Thakur has sung a very beautiful song, Kote Nindraya O Maya Pishachera Kole. O living entity, how long you will sleep in this conditioned world, in the lap of the illusionary energy? Please wake up. Because of this actual sleeping condition of the material world, we are devoid of the spiritual world. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has mentioned, he has brought the medicine. He has brought the medicine to awaken the consciousness of the living being so that he can come out of this deep sleep. And then that medicine is chant the holy name of the Krishna. Surrender to the holy name of Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Because if we will sleep, if we'll remain in the sleeping state, then this Kal Sarpa will devour all of us. And then in text 10, now merchant try to, take the honey out from the beehive. When he take the honey out of the beehive, then bee attack him. So it's just comparing when person is not able to enjoy his senses, with a faithful manner, then what he do? He try to do the sex enjoyment, illegal sex enjoyment. with the illicit manner, and then, or he will try to plunder others' property. Then in that case, when he is trying to steal someone else's property, he gets punished by the either by the government for stealing the money, or by the police, or by the husband of that chastised wife who is trying to do the sex enjoyment, illicit sex enjoyment. So one should condemn this materialistic path, Prabhupada is saying, because it will give the source of misery, and we will be having a downfall because of that, and then we'll feel the consequences in next several lives because of these activities. And uh, the text 11 talk about now, this was talk about the threefold misery, how the Adi Bhautik, Adi Daivik, and Adhyatmic, like too much cold, too much wind, too much rain. This will also give the misery to the merchant. And then Adi Bhautik, we are getting the miseries from the different people in our life, because people are envious, and when we do the cheating propensity, we'll get the repercussion of that. We'll get the consequences of it, and then we'll get miseries out of that cheating propensity. And then adhyatmic, and one can get the misery from his own body and mind. So Prabhupada explained very beautifully, this is the example of the struggle of existence in the material world, because we are trying to attempt to counteract these miseries, but we are not successful. We get the temporary happiness, but we get the onslaught of this material misery. So on contrary, Krishna conscious movement is aimed to create the society of non-envious people, so that this society can be exemplary in the future. Correct? Now text 12, where now we talk about the person, now in the material existence, person is without wealth. And due to this, he does not have proper home, and he does not have place to sit. He does not have bed to lie down. He does not have proper family enjoyment and support. Then in what he does in that condition, then what merchant will do? He will beg the money from other. And when he is unsuccessful to receive the money from other and satisfy his desire, then he will steal. Instead of begging the money, then he will steal the other's property, and then it will create the havoc in the society. And that things we are already seeing in our material world in the Kali Yuga, that people are trying to plunder and seize other property by unfair mean, by forcefully mean. And when the person will caught, he will feel insulted, because he might need to go to preserve the prison, and he will feel disgraceful in the society. And then envious feeling will increase more and more. And then the text 13, the last text of, and then today's verse discussion. Now he got insulted, he got disgraceful. Now what will happen? Now how he will fulfill the desire. Now by fulfilling the desire, he may sometime marry the person. And to run their marriage life smoothly, then he will work very hard on the materialistic part. But even though he could not satisfy all his desire due to the absence of the spiritual enlightenment. And then later, divorce will happen because he's not able to satisfy his partner. He's not happy. He is disgraceful. He will not happy in this life. Then he would like to have a divorce. And then both the people, husband and wife, who married to each other at one certain point, now they become enemy to each other. And so what Prabhupada is saying, when one walked down in the path of the material existence, he faced many, many different challenges. He may get the temporary happiness for some time, but most of the time what he gets, distress, he got attachment, he got lamentation, he got pride, he got hate, hunger, thirst, insult, many disease. And due to that, of all these miserable conditions, he entrapped in this life, birth and death life cycle, and he, bear the birth, death, old age, and disease, all these four reactions. And he wastes his life like an animal life, because his propensity is animal life to sleeping, eating, mating, and defending, because he is not attached to the sadhu, shastra, and guru. His life is waste in this all animal propensity. So further discussion will go where Jadabharda in this chapter, Jadabharda will explain King Rahugana some more knowledge, and then in the next chapter, he will relate everything from the conditioned soul point of view, and later Rahugana will express his gratitude towards the Jadabharda. I would like to pause my words here And please forgive me if I have made any mistake by considering me your humble servant. Hare Krishna, Granth Raj, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. And if you guys, if devotee you have a time, please watch out, read the purport of text 8, which will be the purport of the today's discussion. Thank you, Mataji. Over to you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for very wonderful class. Thank you all devotees for joining.
Hare
Thank you.
Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.